Hey everyone, it's been a while since I showed off my media, aka my music collection. And since I haven't really shown off, I guess, a lot of this particular type of media, I thought it'd be interesting to not just show off a few, but all of them. So today, I'm going to show you my my cassette tape collection! Okay, to start off, cassette tapes fucking suck. Yeah, they really fucking suck. The sound quality is shit. You have to rewind them and fast forward them to find a song you like. They're not convenient anymore today because I don't think you can even buy like a cassette Walkman, and you can't play them in any car stereos nowadays. So basically, they're just I think, at least me personally, I think they're like the stupidest form of audio media around these days, and it boggles my mind like why they won't die and they keep coming back. And like when they started to make a comeback like in the underground a couple of years ago, I was just like, okay, this is interesting, but really when you think about it, like, cassettes have always existed in underground music. I mean, especially like in black metal and dungeon synth and like noise and power electronics. They've always been around, I think. And but when I started seeing like bands that like were reissuing their old albums that were never even like issued on cassette back in like the 90s or even the 80s, and suddenly they're reissuing them on cassette, I was just like, you want to re-release your album on inferior quality media when you could be, having those old recordings remastered and putting on CD or a vinyl, or even just putting it online for digital streaming or whatever, digital download, where it would just be, a revamped version of this old album. But no, they opted to re-release these old albums on cassette tape. And yes, I do fully realize that a lot of cassette tapes nowadays don't sound that bad. So I'm sort of just being an asshole about it. And even some of my own music has been released on cassette, and honestly, some of the recent ones don't sound too bad. In fact, they sound pretty fucking good. But nevertheless, it is a cassette tape. So, anyway, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to briefly just kind of share my cassette collection with you. My cassette tape collection over the years has been both huge and small. Nowadays, it's pretty fucking small. Back in the early 90s, back when CDs were like $18, $19 a piece and they came in those big long boxes, I bought a lot of cassette tapes. I first started getting into like my own music, if you will, back around 1991. The first cassette tape I ever bought was Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction, and I loved the album so much that I wore the cassette out, and eventually like the reel broke in the cassette tape one day, and I didn't even know that was possible, but it happened, and then I had to pull all the spool of reel or whatever the fuck out of my cassette player. It was a horrible tragedy because it was one of my favorite albums, but that was after like 10 years of listening to the cassette, and still this day I have never repurchased that album. I don't know why. I mean, you figure I would have bought it on vinyl or CD, but I just never did. But I guess since those songs are like literally everywhere, anywhere, who really cares, right? Anyway, but yeah, back in the day, I also, I used to have a lot of other just, normal alternative rock or whatever hard rock was popular in the early 90s. And during the later half of the late 90s and early 2000s, when I started to get into like underground black metal and stuff like that, I did some tape trading, but not much. And there was time, actually more recently, where I had some really cool stuff. I had gotten my hands on some old demos and stuff like that, but I don't know, a lot of it I just ended up just trading away to other people or even just selling it on eBay, and actually I made a pretty good amount in selling some of those old death metal demos and even old albums that were reissued back in the early 90s. So, yeah. So, here we go. We're going to start out with, talking about these cassette tapes. Let's check this out. Now, I'm going to try and make this into one video, but I have a pretty good feeling because I like to talk and rant too much. This is probably going to turn into a two-part or even a three-part video, because I'm going to talk a little bit about each one of these cassettes. Probably, anyway. So anyway, to start out with, we have Marble Bog's Wind of Moors. And this is a cassette tape, a re-release of an album that came out, I believe, back in the early 2000s. The original album art had like this crazy Hypnotoad thing on it, and it was really weird and really like questionable taste why someone would just put a fucking toad on their album, but that was what was on the original CD artwork for this particular album. And Marble Bog, in case you don't know, is a black metal, ambient, dungeon synth project from Hungary. And this particular album is very, very, very Burzum-ish sounding dungeon synth, ambient, whatever you want to call it. And this is probably the best stuff he's ever released, to be honest with you. His black metal stuff is okay. I know some people have really like it, but all I can say is it's okay. I don't know. So if you're ever interested in checking out Marble Log, start with Wind of Moors. It's pretty good stuff. Up next is Dissection, Storm of the Light's Bane, and which is of course undoubtedly one of the greatest black metal, melodic black metal, death metal albums ever made. I mean, what can you really say about something that has been said? So, John Nodvik was a fucking genius, and it's, for me personally, it's a very important album. This was the album that just really got me deeper into black metal back about 20 years ago, actually over 20 years ago at this point that I've been listening to black metal, so it's a great cassette, and this is original Nuclear Blast America release from, I believe, 1995. A friend of mine recently gave this to me. He got it way back in the day, and he was like, "So Joe, now that you're engaged and getting married, I'm going to give you a bunch of cassette tapes." And I was like, "Yeah!" So this was one that he gave me. So it's Dissection, Storm of the Light's Bane. Up next is actually another one that friend gave me for my engagement. It's Benediction's, what is it called? Oh, sorry. Dark is the Season. It's Benediction's Dark is the Season, which is an EP this English death metal band released back in, when did they release it? I don't know. Well, whatever, it doesn't matter. I think it was like 93 or 94, and Benediction is one of those death metal bands that's just kind of been around forever. The guy from Napalm Death, Barney, I think he was original member. He's singing one of these albums. I don't know, but Benediction is one of those bands that's been around forever, and I don't think they were really ever that good, to be honest with you. So, yeah, that's Benediction. And then, of course, we have Dismember's Like an Ever-Flowing Stream, which is just one of the best Swedish death metal albums ever made, and by far the best thing Dismember ever made, too. Just pummeling classic Swedish death metal. I mean, this is mandatory stuff if you're into Swedish death metal, and if you're into death metal, hopefully you listen to a lot of Swedish stuff, because I am of the opinion that the Swedes did it better than the guys from Florida. Yeah, that's true, I said it. Fuck Morbid Angel. Okay, Morbid Angel's first album was really good, but the rest... Okay. Guns N' Roses is a Spaghetti Incident. This is another one I bought way back in the day, and I still remember when this came out, and I was a huge, huge fan of Guns N' Roses back then. They were one of my favorite bands, probably back around, 91, 92, and I went through, one of those weird childhood phases where, I wanted to be Axl Rose, I wanted to be Slash, soloing in front of hundreds of people, but I just, as I've said in some of my other reviews, I never took even the most remote steps to become a professional musician or even play in a band, so that never happened. But yeah, I guess if you know this album, it is an all-covers album, and it was the last album they did with the classic lineup, and I always liked this album. It's a lot of old punk songs from the 80s and late 70s, and I think they're really fucking cool. Their renditions is really good, and I don't think it got a lot of attention at the time. I know some people just outright hate this album, but I always thought it was really cool, especially I like a lot of old punk stuff, so yeah, cool. Alright, ever onward. So, up next is Guns N' Roses' Use Your Illusions 2, and this is an album that, again, back in the day, I loved it. I absolutely remember when, songs like Estranged and You Could Be Mine, and all those songs were premiering on MTV, and they had, what was it called back in the early 90s? I think it was called, not Most Wanted, I don't know, Top 20 or something? I don't know, but I remember back in the early 90s, there was, this constant war between, Guns N' Roses, Aerosmith, and Salt and Pepper for, the #1 spot, and, I was just a dumb kid that would watch every day hoping that Guns N' Roses would take the #1 spot with Estranged and other songs from this album. They often did, and it was, different every day, so it was, almost interesting for daytime boring TV for a 12-year-old kid for me at the time. So yeah. But anyway, this is an album I loved it back in the day, and it hasn't held up over the years. I mean, I throw it on every couple of years, and I'm like, all right, there's still some cool songs, and all in all, though, it just hasn't aged well. And I mean, I guess that could be said for most of Guns N' Roses' discography after Appetite for Destruction. It just didn't age well, and whatever. Next is Climax Denial and Hollow Hecatome split. Climax Denial and Hollow Hecatome are two Milwaukee-based artists. Climax Denial has been around for, I think, at least 10, 12 years, and he does industrial, experimental, power electronics, noise music, and I think it has something of like a porno sort of theme to it or something. I don't know. This is the only actual recording of his I've heard, and I really like it. And the Hollow Hecatome stuff is a project of my dear friend Jeremiah, and he does all kinds of like experimental noise, industrial, black metal, like crust punky kind of stuff on the demos, and it's just some of this indescribable weirdness, but it's fucking awesome. I love it. And it was actually a huge influence for my project, Sonic Oscillations. And just as a disclaimer, there's going to be a lot of Hollow Hecatome tapes in this this little show and tell here, so that's just the first of many to come. Oh, well, there's another Hollow Hecatome tape. How about that? So this is the split he did, I think, back in 2013 with another local artist named Saint Sheb. And Saint Sheb, I think this is the only recordings he released. It was sort of instrumental doom stuff, if I remember correctly. It's been a while since I listened to this. It was like funeral doom stuff. I remember it being pretty cool, and I was hoping he would make more stuff, but he never did. And again, like the Hollow Hecatome stuff here is experimental stuff, crazy, off the wall, but I fucking love it. It's awesome stuff, and Jeremiah is a great dude. And okay, so another Hollow Hecatome tape. This is the Combat Initiative, but more recent one, and yeah, just more really just experimental, industrial, and noisy stuff. And I mean, I don't like a lot of stuff in like the power electronics and noise and experimental stuff, and maybe I appreciate this stuff more because Jeremiah is a good friend of mine, but I really like his stuff. I think it's very original compared to a lot of the stuff in the scene. So if you're into just a lot of really diverse stuff like that with experimental stuff, Hollow Hecatome's highly recommended you check it out. This one I talked about in episode, I want to say episode 10 or 11, the Inner Sanctum. This is Acetarn, and this is a solo project from the guy from Marble Bog, and this was a weird mixture of like dungeon synth, some kind of just real droney, dark ambient stuff, and then there was like one song that was more dungeon synth, and yeah, it was okay. It lacked flow, and it was all over the place, so it didn't really, sound really cohesive, but it was an okay recording. Yeah. And this one here is it's a 2-cassette collection for the project Nothing, which is a project of Jason William Walton, who, as you may or may not know, was the bassist for Agalloch. And Nothing was a dark ambient, industrial, noise, power electronics, experimental project that he did from about 1997 till about 2005. Because around 2005 was when Agalloch started getting more popular and serious, and I guess he had to devote all his time to that. I think he also became a father around that time, so he probably didn't have time for any side projects. But this is a re-release of The Spine Overshadowed by the Rope, which I think is an album from 2001. And the main reason why I wanted to get this is because there's a second tape of just rarities and stuff and compilations, unreleased tracks, and it's really cool collection. And Nothing's another band, just a rare example in like the noise and power electronics experimental scene where I absolutely love this guy's stuff, and everything he did was awesome. And I think I talked about in episode, 6 or 7, but the Grace of Audible, his debut album, is absolutely one of the best albums, my personal favorite albums ever released, and it was a huge influence on me, and one of those just albums that really convinced me to make music eventually. So yeah, Nothing, self-rules. Alright, up next is Horna's Heathen Torri, And Horna, as you may or may not know, is a long-running black metal band from Finland. One of the originals, pretty much. I think they started out in like 94 or 95, and this is a re-release of their first album, which up until this recent release, I had never heard, and I think a lot of their first couple albums are actually pretty out of print and hard to find. So this was actually cassette I was looking forward to, and my friend Miguel re-released this on his label Dread Records, which is another local distro record label from here in Milwaukee. And he originally started releasing CDs back in like 2012. Then he moved on to re-releasing cassettes, and he's had a lot of success releasing a lot of old records from like the 90s, even like the 80s, thrash, black metal, death metal, a lot of cool stuff. And yeah, I mean, this is a great re-release. It actually sounds fantastic, and it's, I guess, a rare example where cassettes can actually sound really good. So, and I think this sold out really quickly because it was, pretty. It was usually every re-release he does is only 100 copies, and obviously Hornet has quite a few fans after almost 30 years of being around. But definitely a cool one. That's one I listened to a lot since I got it. Next is Nod, Fishers, which is sort of a, I guess, like death industrial noise. It's a project from Minnesota, and saw this guy live back in, I want to say, like 2014. I really liked it, but unfortunately this was the only recording I've heard to date, and I heard his most recent one is really good, and I've been meaning to, I think the last time I listened to this cassette, I was poking my nose on his Bandcamp, and I was like, man, I should buy some of those other cassettes and tapes, but I just never, or cassettes and CDs, should I say, and I just never pulled the punch on and did it, but I should definitely do that, because this is really cool stuff. Great death industrial project. Next is Infliction Rate, and this is some crazy sort of grindy death metal punk stuff from some local goons. Best way to put it. I guess it was sort of just like a one-off project, not very serious. They were just having fun, but it's okay for what it is. I have no idea how limited it was or how well it actually did. I don't even know if they ever performed live. I feel like they did like one gig and that was it, but kind of okay stuff. Next is Propast, and I don't know how to pronounce the title because it's in Serbian, and I'm not going to even attempt it. I don't think I even got the band's name right. But this shit's really fucking good. Like, I got this as a promo cassette back in, I don't know, maybe 2015, maybe like that. I think it was, and they sent it to me to review my zine, Lunar Hypnosis. Actually, no, it was way before 2015. It was probably like 2012 or 2013. This is really cool stuff. It's got a really strong Watain vibe, and if you're into like Cassius Lucifer, you would definitely love this stuff. It's not a copy by any means, but it's definitely, you can tell the influences there. And there's also a really good Graveland cover on here, which I think is better than the original. So definitely worth checking out. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that's the only thing the band released, which is unfortunate because it's really fucking good. Up next is Muskeg Charnel. And this is another one from Dread Records. This was before he started re-releasing stuff. This is Decomposition Part 1, Peller Mortis. And this is pretty lo-fi. It's honestly pretty generic black metal. I don't like it very much at all. It's the same album on both sides, and I don't know. There was nothing really that I liked about it. So yeah, not much to say, I guess. I created like a promo video for the album, but I remember even during like the creation process, I was like, this isn't really that good, and whatever. And then we come to Hacksaw, which is like more sort of like grindcore. And this is called Raw Fucking Gore. So this is some really cool stuff. I like this a lot. I believe, if I remember correctly, this is a solo project from Glasgow, Scotland, and I like this a lot. It's just got good energy. It's got a lot of vibes that remind me of like old school grindcore. It reminds me of early Carcass, early Napalm Death. That's the kind of like grindcore I like. I don't like the grindcore like past like about 1989. As soon as the song started turning into like 6-second blasts of just noise, I was like, and it just became a joke. I was like, this is stupid. Like, but I always liked like 80s sounding grindcore, and this has got that vibe, so it's really cool stuff. And I should mention that this was released by From Corners Unknown, which is a label that released my own tape, and really cool. I mean, Ryan put a lot of effort into like the visual appearance of the cassettes, and it's kind of a shame they haven't gotten more attention because he's released some really cool stuff, and he did a really good job making everything look really professional. This one I mentioned in, I think, episode 5 or 6 of Inner Sanctum. This is Infernum's Leviathan E2. And this is pure dungeon synth stuff. It's got this sort of like Castlevania vibe. It's really fucking good. It's a project from the guy behind Grey Matter Productions. Unfortunately, the cassette is completely fucked. And this is unfortunate case with a lot of Grey Matter releases where the cassette tapes were absolutely horrendous. They were horribly distorted, or the volume was so low you just couldn't even hear it. And I don't know what to say about that, but there's literally nothing on the sound you can hear. It's just so heavily distorted. It sounds awful. Fortunately, I have the digital files, but I mean, I bought the physical to listen to the cassette tape because I loved it and I really enjoyed it a lot. But I don't know, I got fucked up somehow.